He's just another guy in a cheap polo, eating leftovers in the corporate break room. The new CEO wrinkles her nose at the smell. What she doesn't see is the newspaper clipping behind him, or the 300 hungry kids he feeds every Saturday. This is Mark, a single father working 2 jobs to stay afloat. He's one of millions who face silent judgment every day for simply trying to eat. But beneath that plastic container is a story that flips the entire narrative of charity on its head. What if the people we look down on are actually the ones holding our communities together? Every weekday at 4:45 a.m., Mark Bishop's alarm shatters the silence in his 800-square-foot apartment. He moves through the dark, careful not to wake his 7-year-old daughter, Chloe. In the kitchen, he packs 2 lunches. One for her, a colorful bento box with a love note tucked inside. The other for himself, yesterday's dinner reheated into the same plastic container. By 6 a.m., he's dropping Chloe at a subsidized before-school program. By 6:30, he's clocking in for his first job as a warehouse forklift operator. The work is monotonous, heavy, and pays $18 an hour. Mark is 34 years old. He wasn't always here. 5 years ago, he and his wife, Lydia, were teachers at the same elementary school. They had a modest house, a comfortable routine, a future mapped out. Then came Lydia's diagnosis, a rare and aggressive cancer. The medical bills arrived like a siege. They sold the house, drained their savings, and entered the bewildering maze of medical debt. Lydia fought for 2 years. Mark sold his car to pay for one final experimental treatment. It didn't work. She died 3 years ago, leaving Mark a widower, a single father, and over $200,000 in debt. The debt dictated everything. Teaching, with its emotional toll and modest salary, couldn't cover the monthly payments. The warehouse job offered better hours and health insurance for Chloe. A second job, stocking shelves at a grocery store 3 nights a week, covered the rent on their apartment. This is the math of modern poverty. You work more to earn less, you are always tired, and you become invisible. To his coworkers, Mark is the quiet guy who eats alone. To the new CEO, Alexandra Vance, who toured the warehouse last week, he was a statistic, a line item, someone whose lunch smelled a little too strongly of economy. But on Saturdays, Mark Bishop becomes someone else entirely. He wakes at the same time, but instead of heading to the warehouse, he drives a donated 15-passenger van to a wholesale food district on the edge of the city. Using $50 from his own paycheck, money scrimped from cutting his own meals in half, he buys day-old bread, bruised fruit, and bulk rice from vendors who know him. Then he drives to the basement of the old St. Ignatius Church. By 7 a.m., a small army is waiting. Retirees like Doris, a former lunch lady who runs the industrial stove with military precision. Miguel, a high school kid doing community service who stayed because he saw his little cousin in the line. Sarah, a nurse who comes after her night shift. This is the Harmony Kitchen. It doesn't look like much. Folding tables, a serving line, the constant hum of a too-old refrigerator. But every Saturday it serves a hot, nutritious brunch to 300 children and their families from the surrounding blocks, a neighborhood classified as a food desert. There is no means testing, no paperwork, no shame. You are hungry, you eat. Mark doesn't just run it. He cooks, he serves, he sits with the kids. He knows their names. He knows that little Maya loves strawberries but won't eat the green tops. He knows that the Thompson boys hide sandwiches in their backpacks for later because there often isn't dinner. This is his real job. The warehouse just pays the bills. Back in the corporate world, Alexandra Vance is preparing for a quarterly all-hands meeting. At 38, she's the youngest CEO in the company's history, brought in to boost profits and morale. Her assistant has placed a folder on her desk with initiative proposals. One is titled Corporate Social Responsibility Refresh. It suggests a company-wide day of volunteering and a substantial donation to a recognized, high-profile children's charity. It's clean, it's good PR, it's tax-deductible. Alexandra approves it with a signature. She has no idea that the most effective children's charity in the city is being run by the forklift operator, whose lunch she silently judged. The two worlds are on a collision course, separated only by perception. In the corporate tower, charity is a line item, a photo op, a branding exercise. In the church basement, it's calloused hands chopping vegetables. It's the last $50 in your account buying gallons of milk. It's the profound understanding that hunger doesn't discriminate. Mark lives with a constant, low-grade anxiety. The fear isn't just about money, it's about exposure. If his bosses find out about the kitchen, will they see dedication or a distraction? If the health department gets a complaint about a home cook running a feeding operation, could they shut it down on a technicality? He exists in a precarious balance, trusted by his community but invisible to his employer. Then a crisis. One Tuesday night after his stocking shift, Mark gets a call from Doris. The church's ancient boiler has failed. Pipes have frozen and burst in the basement. The Harmony kitchen is under 6 inches of freezing water. The stove is ruined. The donated freezer, full of meat for the next month, is floating. The damage is catastrophic. The repair estimate from the church's panicked custodian is $15,000. The church's insurance has a massive deductible it can't afford. If the kitchen can't reopen in 2 weeks, 300 kids lose their one guaranteed meal. Mark stands in the flooded basement, the icy water soaking through his shoes, staring at the wreckage of his life's purpose. He has $217 in his checking account. The next day at the warehouse, exhausted and desperate, Mark makes a mistake. Distracted by mentally running through fundraising ideas, he misplaces a pallet of goods. It's a minor error, quickly corrected, but it happens directly in the sightline of a floor manager. Later that afternoon, he is called into the manager's office. Sitting across from the manager is Alexandra Vance. She's there for a routine efficiency review. The manager, wanting to look proactive in front of the new CEO, mentions Mark, lapse in focus, and suggests it might be due to outside distractions. Alexandra looks at Mark, recognizes him as the lunch guy, and her expression hardens from professional neutrality to clear disapproval. She sees a problem employee. She does not see a man who spent his lunch hour on the phone begging food distributors for help. She does not see a father who just promised his daughter everything would be okay. The manager concludes, "We need you present and reliable, Mark. Your second job can't interfere with this one." Mark says nothing. He just nods. Walking back to the forklift, a dangerous idea forms. The company's new CSR initiative, the substantial donation. What if he could get some of that money to save the kitchen? It's a ludicrous, terrifying thought. To approach the CEO who just reprimanded him and ask for a charity grant, it would mean revealing everything. It would mean risking his primary job, his stability for Chloe. But as he looks at the photo of his daughter taped to the forklift's dash, he thinks of the 300 other daughters and sons. He has no choice. He has to ask. The following Monday, Mark Bishop puts on his only button-down shirt, practices his speech in the break room mirror, and walks towards the executive suite to beg for help from the woman who thinks he's a charity case. He has no idea she's already made a decision that will destroy everything he's built. Mark's knuckles hover an inch from the polished oak of the CEO's door. His stomach is a knot of cold fear. Behind that door is a woman who has already categorized him as unreliable. Inside his folder is a handwritten proposal for the Harmony kitchen, complete with photos of smiling kids and a breakdown of how $15,000 would not just fix a boiler, but secure the next 2 years. He takes a breath, a silent prayer to Lydia for strength, and knocks. Alexandra Vance's assistant, a young man with a perpetually neutral expression, opens the door. Mark asks to speak with Ms. Vance about the company's community initiative. The assistant checks a tablet. She has 5 minutes before her next call. "You may enter." The office is a monument to modern success. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame the city skyline. Everything is sleek, minimal, and quiet. Alexandra Vance doesn't look up from her laptop. "You have 5 minutes," she says, her voice cool. Mark begins his pitch, stumbling at first, then finding his footing. He talks about the neighborhood, the food desert, the 300 kids. He mentions the flood, the ruined equipment, the looming deadline. He slides the folder across the vast desk. Alexandra finally looks up, but not at the folder. She looks at his worn button-down shirt, at the faint grease stain on his knee from this morning's forklift maintenance. Her expression is one of polite, distant scrutiny. She doesn't open the folder. "Mr. Bishop," she says, reading his name from his badge. "The corporate social responsibility budget is allocated to vetted, established nonprofits with proven track records and full transparency. We partner with organizations, not individual passion projects." The term passion project hangs in the air, dismissive and final. Mark tries again, his voice tightening. "It's not a project, ma'am. It's a lifeline. We're all volunteers. Every dollar goes straight to food." Alexandra leans back, steepling her fingers. "Precisely. Volunteer-run, informal structure. That presents liability issues, reputational risk. What if there's a food safety problem? The company's name would be attached." She pushes the folder gently back toward him. "I admire your community spirit, but the answer is no. Focus that energy on your performance here. That's the best way to provide for your family." The dismissal is absolute. The 5 minutes are up. Mark walks out of the office, the folder feeling like a lead weight in his hand. The door clicks shut behind him, a sound of finality. Back on the warehouse floor, the humiliation burns. He replays the conversation, each of her words a precise, surgical cut. Passion project. Liability. Proven track records. He thinks of the proven track record of empty stomachs. He thinks of Miguel, the high school kid who told him last week the kitchen was the reason he hadn't dropped out. That was a track record no corporate report could capture. That night at the grocery store stockroom, Mark is a ghost. He moves boxes mechanically, his mind 1,000 miles away in a flooded basement. His supervisor notices his distraction and files a note. 2 marks on his record in 1 week. In the corporate system, a pattern is forming. The algorithm of personnel management is starting to flag him. Meanwhile, Alexandra Vance is preparing for a televised business roundtable. The topic is ethical leadership in the modern era. Her speech is full of polished phrases about stakeholder value and sustainable compassion. As she reviews her talking points, a flicker of unease passes through her. Mark Bishop's face, the raw plea in his eyes, it was inconvenient. It didn't fit the narrative. She pushes it aside. Business is business. Sentiment cannot dictate fiscal responsibility. Yet after the round table, as her driver navigates the evening traffic, she does something uncharacteristic. She opens her personal tablet and types Harmony Kitchen sent Ignatius into a search engine. The results are meager. A 2-paragraph blurb on a local community blog from a year ago. A single grainy photo of a serving line. No website, no tax ID number listed, no annual reports. It's exactly as she feared, an amateur operation. But then she scrolls further. A comment on the blog post catches her eye. It's from a user named GratefulMom23. It reads, "My kids eat their best meal of the week here. The man who runs it, Mark, he remembers every kid's name. He saved us when my EBT card was stolen. God bless him." Alexandra stares at the comment. She clicks the user's profile. It's a real person with other posts about parenting and local schools. A data point, an anomaly. Driven by a nagging curiosity she can't quite explain, Alexandra instructs her driver to take a different route home. She gives him the address of St. Ignatius Church. The neighborhood changes rapidly as they leave the financial district. The buildings grow older, the streets less maintained. When the car pulls up to the modest stone church, it's 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. The place is dark, quiet, but a light glows from a basement window. Alexandra tells her driver to wait. She steps out into the cool evening air. Peering through the window, she sees a single figure moving in the large, empty room. It's Mark. He's on his hands and knees, a bucket and mop beside him, scrubbing the concrete floor. The water damage is clearly visible on the lower walls. A single work light casts long shadows. He's alone, working after a full day and a night shift, trying to salvage a space the world has forgotten. Alexandra watches unseen. She sees the determination in his shoulders, the weariness in his movements. This isn't a passion project. This is a siege, and he is the lone soldier holding the line. For the first time, a crack forms in her certainty. She gets back in the car, but she doesn't give the driver her home address. She tells him to go to the office. She has research to do. The next morning, Alexandra doesn't go to her corner office. She puts on casual clothes, a simple blouse and slacks, and goes back to the neighborhood. This time it's a Saturday. She parks a block away and walks. The scene outside the church is utterly different. A line snakes around the building, full of families, children holding their parents' hands. The air smells of roasting vegetables and baking bread. Laughter and conversation spill out from the open basement door. Alexandra blends into the back of the line, her heart pounding with a strange mix of guilt and fascination. No one recognizes her. Here, she is invisible. She gets a paper plate heaped with scrambled eggs, roasted potatoes, and a piece of fresh fruit. She finds a spot at the end of a crowded table. She listens. She hears a young mother telling Doris how the kitchen's recipe cards helped her stretch her groceries. She sees Miguel, the teenager, patiently helping a little girl cut her pancakes. And she sees Mark. He is everywhere, flipping pancakes with a worn spatula, kneeling to talk to a child at eye level, laughing with an elderly volunteer. The quiet, distracted warehouse worker is gone. Here he is a conductor of compassion, energized, focused, utterly in his element. The contrast is jarring. Alexandra finishes her food, her mind racing. The scale, the efficiency, the palpable joy in the room. It's more organized and impactful than half the corporate charity galas she's attended. She leaves without speaking to anyone, her worldview quietly fracturing. On Monday, Alexandra calls a discreet meeting with the head of her security and analytics team. She gives him a name, Mark Bishop. "I want a full, quiet background check. Financials, credit, any legal issues. And I want to know everything about this Harmony Kitchen. Who funds it? Where does the food come from? What's the real scope?" She expects to find skeletons. Hidden debts, maybe a chaotic operation. The report lands on her desk 48 hours later. It is not what she expected. Mark Bishop's credit is destroyed, yes, from medical debt. There are no late payments on his current rent or utilities. No criminal record, not even a traffic ticket. The analysis of the kitchen is more startling. Using satellite imagery and utility usage patterns, the analyst estimates a consistent weekly service of 280 to 320 individuals. Cross-referencing with his bank statement analysis, a line item Alexandra hesitates at but authorizes. They find the $50 weekly transfer to a wholesale vendor. The math is undeniable. The man is funding the core of this operation from his own poverty. The food sources are a patchwork of small vendor donations, a gleaning program from a local farm, and his personal funds. The report concludes, subject operates a significant, sustained charitable feeding program with negligible resources. Operational model is lean, community embedded, and appears highly effective despite zero formal oversight. Reputational risk profile, complex. Potential for positive association is high, but connection to subject's precarious financial situation presents a narrative vulnerability. Alexandra sits in the dark of her office, the city lights twinkling below. The word vulnerability echoes. She realizes with a cold clarity that she got it all backwards. Mark Bishop isn't a liability. He is an asset of unimaginable value, and her company, with all its resources, is on the verge of losing him, of asterisk firing him, over a misplaced pallet. A wave of professional and personal shame washes over her. She acted on perception, not data. She judged the container, not the contents. She has to fix this. But corporate machinery, once set in motion, is hard to stop. The very next day, Mark is called into the HR department. His floor manager is there, along with a stern-looking HR representative. The meeting is brief. Given his 2 recent performance notes and his admitted outside distractions, the company is placing him on a 90-day probationary period. Any further lapses will result in termination. The message is clear: abandon the kitchen or lose your job. Mark leaves the HR office in a daze. The trap has sprung. He can't save the kitchen without his job, and he can't keep his job if he saves the kitchen. He drives to the church basement that evening, the weight of failure crushing him. He tells Doris and the core volunteers. The room is filled with a heavy silence. Then Doris speaks up, her voice firm. "We're not done yet, Mark. We'll pass the hat in the neighborhood. We'll have a bake sale. We'll do something." But the hope in her eyes doesn't reach Mark's heart. He knows the numbers. A bake sale can't raise $15,000. Alexandra, now armed with the truth, decides on a grand, corrective gesture. She will bypass the red tape. She will use her discretionary fund as CEO to write a personal check to the Harmony Kitchen for $20,000. She will hand-deliver it. She will publicly align the company with this grassroots hero. It will be a story of a CEO who looked deeper, who saw greatness in her own employee. She drafts a press release. She calls the city's major business journalist, a woman named Claire Thompson, and offers her an exclusive, a CEO's change of heart, from break room to breadline. She pictures the positive coverage, the brand uplift. It is, in her mind, the perfect solution. She will save the kitchen, rehabilitate Mark standing at the company, and create a powerful CSR narrative. She is, in every way, preparing to perform an act of rescue. Friday afternoon, Alexandra arrives at the warehouse unannounced. She asks the floor manager to bring Mark to the break room, the same break room. When Mark enters, he sees her standing there, a sealed envelope in her hand. His heart sinks, expecting his final termination papers. The floor manager hovers nearby, confused. Alexandra smiles, a gesture meant to be warm. "Mark, I owe you an apology. I looked into the Harmony Kitchen. It's extraordinary. What you've built, it's humbling." Mark just stares, bewildered. She holds out the envelope. This is a personal donation and the company's commitment to match it, $20,000 to repair the kitchen and to secure its future. She pauses for effect. "I've also invited Claire Thompson from the Business Chronicle. She's right outside. I'd like to tell this story, your story." At that moment, Claire Thompson and a photographer enter the break room. The camera flash goes off, capturing the moment. The CEO in her blazer, the check, the forklift operator in his polo, frozen in shock. Mark looks from the check to the reporter to Alexandra's triumphant smile. He understands the transaction immediately. His pain, his struggle, his daughter's memory of her mother, it's all about to become a corporate publicity piece. The kitchen will be saved, but it will no longer be his. It will be theirs. The envelope feels toxic in his hand. The story runs online that very evening. The headline is exactly as Alexandra envisioned. CEO discovers hero in her own warehouse. It paints her as insightful, compassionate. It paints Mark as a humble, struggling saint. It goes viral locally by 9 p.m., but the internet is a chaotic beast. By midnight, the comments section splits into warring factions. One side celebrates the feel-good story. The other side, armed with new details, begins a furious critique. "He's on food stamps and funding a charity. That's misallocation of public assistance. A health department needs to inspect that church basement ASAP. Why is a CEO giving handouts instead of paying a living wage?" The narrative spins out of Alexandra's control. And then, at 7 the next morning, Mark receives a phone call. It's from the city health department. An anonymous complaint has been filed regarding an unpermitted, large-scale food service operation operating out of a residential church basement. An inspector will be there at 10 a.m. If violations are found, the kitchen will be shut down immediately and substantial fines levied. The donation check is still in his hand, but now it's worthless. You can't bribe a health code violation. The rescue has become a death sentence. And Mark knows, with a chilling certainty, exactly who made that anonymous call. Someone who saw the news story. Someone who wanted to tear down what they couldn't understand. The clock is ticking. 90 minutes until the inspector arrives. 90 minutes to save everything or lose it forever. The phone slips from Mark's hand and clatters on the linoleum floor. 90 minutes. He is standing in his own kitchen, the check for $20,000 sitting on the counter like a cruel joke. He calls Doris, his voice tight. "Get everyone. Now, we have an inspection at 10. He doesn't wait for a reply. He grabs his keys and runs. By 8:30 a.m., a surreal scene unfolds in the church basement. Mark, Doris, Miguel, Sarah the nurse, and 3 other volunteers are in a frenzy. They are not cooking. They are performing emergency surgery on the space itself. Mark is on a ladder, replacing a burned-out light bulb in the food prep area, a violation he knows they'll look for. Doris is scrubbing the base of the industrial sink with bleach, her hands red and raw. Miguel is hauling bags of soggy, ruined drywall to a dumpster out back. The air reeks of disinfectant and damp plaster. They are trying to transform a disaster zone into a code-compliant kitchen in under 2 hours. It's impossible. Sarah approaches Mark, her face pale. Mark, the refrigerator temperature logs. We haven't kept them. That's an automatic fail. Mark closes his eyes. They operated on trust, not paperwork. Every corner they cut to feed more people is now a weapon against them. At the same time, Alexandra Vance is in her downtown condo, sipping coffee and watching the news story unfold on a business channel. The tone has shifted. A pundit is now questioning the ethics of her donation. Is this corporate virtue signaling, or is Ms. Vance inadvertently exposing vulnerable people to scrutiny they can't withstand? Then, a breaking news banner flashes. Health Department launches probe into viral hero kitchen. Alexandra's blood runs cold. This wasn't the narrative. This was chaos. She realizes with a sickening jolt that her grand gesture, her attempt to control the story, had the opposite effect. She had shown a massive spotlight on a delicate, grassroots operation, and the heat was burning it down. Her PR head calls, panic in her voice. Alexandra, the comments are turning. They're calling for an investigation into our labor practices. This is becoming a crisis. For the first time in her career, Alexandra Vance feels the ground crumbling beneath her. She didn't just fail to help, she lit the fuse on a bomb. 9:45 a.m. The volunteers stand in the middle of the basement, breathing heavily. The space is cleaner, but it's a facade. The water damage is still visible, the stove is still broken, the paperwork is non-existent. They all know it's not enough. Mark looks at their tired, fearful faces. "Whatever happens," he says, his voice breaking, "thank you. You built this with me." They hear a car door shut outside. A moment later, a man in a crisp city windbreaker appears at the basement door, clipboard in hand. He is Inspector Davis. He doesn't smile. "I'm here for the inspection of the Harmony kitchen." He steps inside, his eyes immediately scanning, nodding, judging. The inspection is methodical and brutal. Inspector Davis checks the sink water temperature. He opens the non-functioning refrigerator and takes its temperature with a probe. He runs a finger along the seam of the countertop. He asks for food handlers' permits. Doris has one from her lunch lady days. No one else does. He asks for the certified kitchen manager certificate. Mark doesn't have one. He asks for the written food safety plan. Silence. With each question, Mark's hope dies a little. The inspector's face remains impassive, but his pen moves across the violation form with alarming speed. Mark watches him check boxes. 201, no certified manager. 3201, improper cold holding temperatures. 6201, inadequate hand washing signage. The list grows. Then Inspector Davis walks over to the far wall where the water damage is most severe. He taps the drywall. It's soft. Mold is just beginning to bloom in the corner. He looks at Mark. This is a Category 3 violation, structural damage, potential mold. This facility is immediately unfit for food service. He turns to face the small, defeated group. "I'm sorry. I have to issue a cease and desist order. The Harmony kitchen is shut down, effective immediately. You cannot prepare or serve food here until these violations are corrected and a re-inspection is passed." He hands Mark the yellow form. It might as well be a death certificate. But then something unexpected happens. Inspector Davis doesn't leave. He looks around the room again at the carefully arranged tables, at the handmade welcome sign painted by the children. He sighs, a long, tired sound. "Look," he says, his official demeanor softening just a fraction. "I've been doing this for 15 years. I've shut down restaurants for less. What you're doing here, I can see it, but my hands are tied. The complaint was very specific, very detailed. It didn't come from a neighbor. It came from someone who knew exactly what codes to cite." Mark's head snaps up. "Who?" The inspector shakes his head. Anonymous, but it was thorough. Someone wanted this place closed. He pauses, lowering his voice. The fines for operating without a permit are substantial, but if you were to apply for a temporary food service permit for different location, say a community event in a park, that process is faster. And the ray inspection for this facility would be scheduled after repairs. It's a path, a narrow one. He's offering a loophole, a shred of mercy. He tips his clipboard slightly, showing Mark a website for temporary event permits. Then he turns and walks out, leaving the yellow paper in Mark's hand. The volunteers are shell-shocked. Shut down, the words echo, but Mark is already thinking. A park. They could do a one-day event. They could feed the kids tomorrow at least. But they need a permit, a new location, equipment, and they have no stove, no money, and 15 hours. It's another impossible task. Just then Mark's phone rings. It's a number he doesn't recognize. He answers, bracing for more bad news. A woman's voice, calm and professional, says, "Mr. Bishop, my name is Claire Thompson. We met briefly yesterday. I'm the reporter. I'm calling because I've just received a packet of documents, financial records, your medical debt, your wife's obituary, and a timeline drawing a direct line from your wife's death to you starting the kitchen." Mark's breath catches. "Who sent them?" Claire's voice is grim. "Anonymous. They're suggesting you're using the kitchen as a tax-free personal grift, that you're profiting from sympathy. They're demanding I run a follow-up story." This is the wait it gets worse moment. The attack is no longer just bureaucratic. It's personal, vicious, and aimed at destroying his character completely. Someone isn't just trying to close the kitchen. They're trying to erase Mark Bishop. Across town, Alexandra is in full crisis management mode in her office. Her legal team advises complete distance. "We retract the donation, issue a statement that we were misled, and cut ties with Bishop." But Alexandra is staring at a screenshot from the news story. It's the photo of her handing Mark the check. His face in that photo isn't grateful. It's horrified. She finally sees it. She had been so focused on her own narrative, she never considered his. She realizes the anonymous complaints, the leaked documents. This is corporate warfare. A competitor, a disgruntled shareholder, someone using Mark as a pawn to attack her. Her assistant rushes in. "Ma'am, we traced the IP address of the most toxic comments calling for Mark's firing. They're coming from inside the company, from the marketing department." Alexandra's eyes narrow. The pieces click. The floor manager who wrote Mark up. He reports to the head of marketing, a rival for the CEO position who opposed her CSR initiatives. This was an inside job. Her attempt to do good had ignited an internal power struggle, and Mark was caught in the crossfire. The stakes just exploded from a local kitchen to her entire leadership. Mark, reeling from the reporter's call, gets another. This time it's Child Protective Services. An anonymous tip has been filed, expressing concern for Chloe's welfare due to father's financial instability and neglectful focus on an illegal food operation. They will be making a home visit within 24 hours. Mark slumps against the basement wall, the world spinning. They're coming for his daughter. This is the bottom. The kitchen is gone, his name is being smeared, and now the one thing he lives for is under threat. He looks at the faces of his volunteers who have heard everything. Their expressions have shifted from defeat to fury. Dora steps forward, her eyes blazing. "No, we are not letting this happen. This is our community, and we fight for our own." She pulls out her own ancient flip phone and starts making calls. What happens next is not organized by Mark. It is organized by the 300 families. Word spreads through the neighborhood like wildfire. The kitchen is closed. Mark is being attacked. CPS is involved. By 2 p.m., a crowd begins to gather outside the church. Not a protest, but a vigil. Parents and children holding handmade signs. "Mark fed my family. Harmony Kitchen equals hope. Shame on the anonymous coward." A local community activist, Ms. Alma, who runs the after-school program, sets up a live stream on her phone. She hands the phone to a teenager. "Point it at the people. Let them talk." The live stream goes up. One by one, parents step in front of the camera. They don't yell. They tell stories. A mother talks about how the kitchen's food allowed her to pay for her son's asthma medication. A father, a day laborer, explains how the Saturday meal meant his kids didn't go to bed hungry while he waited for a Monday paycheck. A grandmother raises a photo of her grandson, saying Mark helped him with his homework every week. The emotion is raw, real, and undeniable. The stream starts with a dozen viewers, then 100, then thousands. It is picked up by local news stations desperate for the other side of the viral story. Alexandra, watching the live stream from her office, is crying. She sees the real impact, the human network she almost destroyed. She sees Mark standing silently to the side, looking shattered as his community defends him. She makes a decision. It is no longer about saving her reputation. It is about atonement. She calls her legal team back. Forget the retraction. Draw up new paperwork. I want to create a nonprofit foundation for the Harmony Kitchen with Mark as its director, fully funded for 3 years. Use my personal money if you have to. Then she does something even more radical. She goes downstairs to the warehouse floor, finds the floor manager, and in front of a dozen stunned employees says, "You're fired for gross misconduct and fostering a hostile work environment." The power play is immediate and public. She is burning her own internal bridge to save an external one. But as the sun begins to set, the health department's cease and desist order is still active. The kitchen is still closed. The anonymous enemy is still out there. And Child Protective Services is still scheduled to visit Mark's apartment the next morning. The community's love is a shield, but it is not a solution. Mark needs a legal champion, and he needs one now. As the crowd outside the church swells to over 200 people, a black sedan pulls up. A woman in a sharp suit gets out. It is Claire Thompson, the reporter, but she's not holding a microphone, she's holding a business card. She walks up to Mark and hands it to him. "I'm not here as a reporter right now. My sister is a family law attorney. She's the best. She'll handle CPS pro bono. Call her." Then she looks at the crowd at the live stream camera. "And tomorrow," she says, her voice clear and loud enough for all to hear, "my headline isn't about a scandal. It's about a system that punishes compassion." And I'm naming names. She has switched sides. The Fourth Estate is now a cavalry. Mark takes the card, a flicker of hope cutting through the exhaustion. He has a lawyer. He has a community. He even has a reluctant ally in the CEO. But the fundamental problem remains. 300 kids need to eat tomorrow, and they have no kitchen, no stove, and a mountain of red tape. As night falls, Mark looks at the crowd, then at the dark, silent basement of the church. He has one final, desperate idea. It's against every rule. It could land him in real legal trouble. But it's the only way. He turns to Doris and says, "Call the volunteers. Tell them to meet me at the warehouse at 5 a.m. We're not cooking in the kitchen tomorrow." He looks out at the city lights. We're taking the food to them. The battle for the Harmony Kitchen is over. The war to feed its children is about to begin on a whole new front. At 4:30 a.m., the warehouse parking lot is empty and silent, bathed in the harsh glow of sodium lights. Mark's beat-up sedan is the first to arrive. Then one by one headlights appear. Doris in her old station wagon, Miguel on his bicycle, Sarah in her scrubs straight from her shift. They gather at the loading bay, a small band of rebels with no plan beyond faith. Mark lays it out. "We can't use the church. We can't cook here without permits, so we don't cook." He opens the back of his car. Inside are 200 brown paper bags, each one assembled in his living room the night before with Chloe's help. Each contains a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, a bag of baby carrots, a juice box, and a homemade oatmeal cookie. "We take these to the park. We hand them out. It's not a hot meal, but it's food. And we do it where everyone can see. It's a stopgap, a gesture, but it's all they have." As they start loading the bags into Doris's car, another set of headlights cuts through the gloom. A sleek black SUV pulls in. Alexandra Vance steps out, dressed not in a blazer but in jeans and a simple sweatshirt. She walks directly to Mark. The volunteers freeze, tension crackling in the air. Alexandra doesn't offer a handshake. She says, "The company's commercial kitchen in the executive building. It's fully permitted, inspected monthly. It has 2 industrial stoves, 3 convection ovens, and a walk-in refrigerator. It's yours, right now." Mark stares at her, distrust warring with desperate hope. Why? Alexandra meets his gaze, her earlier polish replaced by raw sincerity. Because I was wrong, and because 300 kids shouldn't eat sandwiches when there's a kitchen full of food 10 minutes away. My legal team is drawing up a liability waiver. The health department has been notified of a temporary change of location under the company's existing permit. We have 2 hours until the park distribution. Let me help you cook. It is the most unexpected truce. The volunteers look to Mark. He knows this could be another trap, but he also sees the bags of groceries already being unloaded from the back of Alexandra's SUV. Eggs, milk, pancake mix, fresh fruit, bought with her own money on her way over. He sees not a CEO, but a woman trying to dig her way out of a hole she created. He nods. Okay. The next 2 hours are a blur of controlled chaos in a kitchen that looks like it belongs in a 5-star hotel. Alexandra, who hasn't cooked for herself in a decade, is taking orders from Doris. Miguel is whisking batter. Sarah is managing the industrial griddle. And Mark is at the center of it all, his quiet command filling the space. The aroma of baking pancakes and sizzling sausage fills the air. By 6:30 a.m., they have produced 350 hot breakfast plates, packed into insulated carriers. They load them into the SUV and the station wagon and head to the park. At 7 a.m., as the first families begin to gather at the park, unsure what to expect after the news of the shutdown, they are met not with a somber brown bag line, but with the familiar, glorious smell of a Harmony Kitchen breakfast. Mark, Doris, Miguel, and Sarah are there, setting up folding tables. And beside them, carrying a heavy tray, is Alexandra Vance. The community recognizes her from the news. There are wary looks, whispers. But then a little girl runs up, hugs Mark's legs, and asks, "You brought the pancakes?" Mark smiles, his first real smile in days. "We brought the pancakes." The line forms. The food is served. It is, against all odds, a normal Saturday. While this is happening, at 9 a.m., a Child Protective Services worker named Mrs. Garcia arrives at Mark's apartment. She is met at the door by Alina Vance, Alexandra's older sister and one of the city's top family law attorneys, as promised by Claire Thompson. Alina is polite but formidable. She invites Mrs. Garcia in. The apartment is small but immaculate. Chloe's drawings are on the fridge. Her homework is neatly laid out on the table. There are photos of Lydia, of their family. Alina presents documentation, Mark's steady employment, Chloe's excellent school reports, letters from her teacher and the pediatrician. Then she plays a clip from the live stream on her phone, showing the community defending Mark. "My client," Alina says calmly, "is a widower who has dedicated his life to his daughter and to feeding hundreds of other children. The anonymous tip was a malicious act from a business rival trying to destroy him." Here is the sworn affidavit from the CEO of his company stating so. Mrs. Garcia, a seasoned professional, sees a clean, loving home and a child who is clearly well cared for. She sees a community's testament. After a 20-minute visit, she closes her notebook. No further action required. The file is closed. The threat to Chloe evaporates. By 10 a.m., the park distribution is winding down. Every plate is gone. The mood is celebratory but tense. The underlying problems remain. Then Claire Thompson arrives with her photographer, but she's not alone. Beside her is Inspector Davis from the health department. Mark's heart sinks, expecting another shutdown order. Instead, Inspector Davis walks over to the temporary setup, examines the insulated carriers, the hand-washing station Alexandra had the foresight to bring. He then addresses Mark and the small crowd. "I've observed your operation this morning. The temporary permit for this location is in order. The food was prepared in a permitted facility. This," he says, gesturing to the park setup, "is compliant." Then he turns to Mark. "I've also reviewed the complaint that shut down the church. The motivation appears to be malicious, not public safety. Given that, and given the clear community need, I am fast-tracking the re-inspection process for the church basement. If you can get the repairs done and submit a proper food safety plan, I will be there next Saturday. It's not a pardon, but it's a path, a real one." The following Monday, the business world wakes up to Claire Thompson's front page story. The headline is not about a scandal. It reads, "The Two Kitchens: How a CEO and a forklift driver rediscovered compassion in a corporate break room." The article is a masterwork. It details Mark's story with respect, exposes the internal corporate sabotage by the former marketing head who resigned over the weekend, and critically it publishes the financials Alexandra provided, the full funding of the new Harmony Foundation, a 3-year grant to cover all kitchen operations, repairs, and a modest salary for Mark as its director. It also announces the company's new policy, a corporate food insecurity fund for employees and paid volunteer hours. The story goes national. This time, the narrative is about redemption, community, and systemic change. 1 month later, the repaired and upgraded Harmony Kitchen reopens in the St. Ignatius basement. The walls are freshly painted, the floor is new epoxy, and a shiny donated commercial stove stands where the old one died. The line is longer than ever. Mark is at the helm, but he is not alone. Alexandra Vance is there too, not as a CEO, but as a volunteer, wearing an apron and learning how to chop vegetables from Doris. She comes every other Saturday. It is not publicity. It is penance, and then, gradually, it becomes purpose. The surprising detail emerges quietly weeks later. Mark is going through the mail at the new foundation's tiny office when he finds a plain envelope with no return address. Inside is a handwritten note and a cashier's check for $5,000. The note reads, "I made the anonymous call to the health department. I was jealous. My son loved your kitchen and I felt ashamed I couldn't provide like you could. I thought if I couldn't have it, no one should. I was wrong. I am so sorry. Please use this to help the kids." It is signed, "A Grateful Mom." The final attack had come not from a corporate rival, but from the very pain the kitchen sought to heal. Mark doesn't pursue it. He deposits the check into the foundation account. He understands that shame is the real enemy and compassion is the only weapon that works. 1 year later, the Harmony Kitchen has evolved. It is now a community hub with after-school tutoring, a small food pantry, and cooking classes for parents. Mark works there full-time, his warehouse days behind him. Chloe helps out after school, proud of her dad. Alexandra Vance, still the CEO, has fundamentally reshifted her company's culture around tangible community investment. The break room story is now a case study in her leadership seminars, a lesson in looking deeper. On a bright Saturday morning, Mark stands at the entrance of the bustling kitchen. He watches Alexandra laugh with Doris, sees Miguel, now a college freshman, home for the weekend and back to volunteer. He feels Chloe's hand slip into his. The plastic container from the corporate break room is long gone, replaced by something unbreakable. The man who was once judged for his lunch now feeds a neighborhood, not from a place of charity, but from a place of solidarity. The hero's journey was never about a rescue. It was about a bridge being built between two worlds that never should have been separate in the first place. And it all started when someone finally looked past the container and saw the meal inside. So what does this story leave us with? It's more than a feel-good tale about a generous dad and a reformed CEO. It's a map of a profound disconnect in our modern world. We have built systems that measure worth by titles, by bank statements, by the brands on our lunch containers. We have trained ourselves to see struggle as a sign of failure, and charity as something that flows only from the top down. Mark and Alexandra's journey forces us to question that entire architecture. It reveals a hidden economy of care, one that operates in church basements and break rooms, powered not by capital but by compassion. An economy where the currency is a $50 sacrifice, a Saturday morning, a remembered name, and the returns are measured in futures saved, not quarterly profits. The research we uncovered at the start wasn't just background. It was the bedrock of this truth. The data shows that food-insecure individuals are 257% more likely to suffer anxiety, that stigma is the single biggest barrier to getting help, and that lower-income people give a dramatically higher percentage of what they have. Mark Bishop wasn't an anomaly. He was an example. He embodied the generosity paradox. The very circumstances that made him an object of pity were the forge that shaped his profound capacity to give. And Alexandra Vance's journey wasn't about becoming a hero, but about becoming a student. She had to unlearn a lifetime of assumptions about value, efficiency, and risk. Her greatest leadership decision wasn't writing a check. It was putting on an apron and taking orders from a retired lunch lady. This leaves us with a lingering, uncomfortable question. How many marks are in our own orbit? How many people do we dismiss, overlook, or quietly judge based on the superficial container of their lives? The coworker who's always tired, the neighbor whose car is falling apart, the parent at the school gate who seems withdrawn. We see the plastic container. We do not see the silent battles, the hidden contributions, the quiet dignity of perseverance. We miss the meal inside. The system encourages this blindness. It labels people as liabilities or assets, as productive or problematic, often based on the thinnest slice of data. But humanity doesn't work on a spreadsheet. It works on connection. The Harmony Kitchen survived not because of a donation, but because of a network. It was saved by a community that refused to let its heart be dismantled, by a reporter who chose integrity over a simple scoop, by a health inspector who remembered the spirit of the law, and yes, by a CEO who had the courage to admit she was wrong. The solution was always collective. It was about bridging the artificial canyon between the corporate tower and the church basement, and realizing they are part of the same city, the same human family. Mark's story ends not with an ending, but with a new beginning. The kitchen is more than a place to eat now. It's a beacon of a different possibility, a possibility where we judge less and ask more, where we see need not as a stain but as a shared responsibility, where the measure of a person is not what they have, but what they give from whatever they have. That plastic container in the break room was never about food. It was a mirror. And the choice is always ours. Do we look at the surface and turn away, or do we look deeper and see a chance to connect? If you believe that real change starts when we choose to see the person behind the stereotype, when we value compassion over convenience, then subscribe. Because the world is full of untold stories, of quiet heroes and unexpected alliances, waiting for someone to look past the container.